Today we're interviewing Liz McLaughlin, Head of Product and Innovation at Fexco. Liz has a background in product development and commercial innovation and holds cross-industry experience in telco, financial services, pharma and biomed industries. Liz, you're very welcome today. Thanks for joining us in the RDI Hub Media Lab. You just gave a presentation and Q&A to our members here on product and innovation and had some really valuable insights for our members when they're building out their products. So I'd just like to learn a little more about key projects and processes. Can you tell me a little about your background, please?
Yeah, no problem. So I started originally as an engineer. Electronic engineer was what my original qualification is. I worked in the telecoms industry very early days and very early on got involved in product development within a telecom space. It was very probably technical work, I would say, to start off with. And then throughout my career moved more to the kind of innovation and commercial side of product development. So I've kind of seen it from both sides. And then more laterally, I've worked in consulting in the innovation space. And that's where I would have broadened across to different industries, whether that was pharma, medtech. And more recently, just before joining Fexco, I would have worked in Accenture in their R&D centre, which was really interesting and a place that was very focused on kind of artificial intelligence, data analytics, design thinking, and bringing all those disciplines together to design new products and services. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of my life so far.
Interesting projects, never a dull moment. So part of your role at the moment is to maximise the revenue impact of core products and services. So I know you're all about fresh thinking at the moment. So can you give me an example of where you applied fresh thinking to bring about new products and services from your core business?
Yeah, sure. I suppose rather than give one specific example, I suppose how we set ourselves up within the core product innovation side of things is, we work very closely with our business counterparts. On the commercial side of the house, we like to develop relationships with our customers as well. So really what we're all about is understanding the pain points that customers have and ensuring that the product roadmap is solving problems for those customers. So everything we do in core product innovation is really making sure that the product strategy is very aligned to the business strategy and whatever the commercial goals of that business are. So depending on what market they're focusing on, the customers they're particularly looking to target, we ensure then that the product has the right set of features within it to deliver to those customers. So I would say it's kind of continuous fresh thinking is required. The world keeps moving. People need new things. If you look at our payment gateway, we ourselves have changed the way we pay for things. You don't go in and pay for something with a check anymore. We started to pay with cards, then we paid with contactless. Now we're all paying with wallets. All of those things have implications for our customers, and we need to update our services so that then they can serve their customers. So fresh thinking needed all the time, I would say. If you're not fresh thinking, you're dead.
Well, following on from fresh thinking, a core part of your business then is working on the new product innovation. So
yes.
Can you tell me a bit about the process there? As you've got limited resources, it's a small team. So what's your process? How does this work when you're approaching new products and services?
Yeah. So look, Fexco has no shortage of history around being innovative and being entrepreneurial. As you mentioned, we do have a relatively small team, so we need to be very focused around what we're doing. Ultimately, we're trying to deliver commercial value for Fexco, so we have to kind of limit the pet projects on that side of the house and make sure that everything we're doing, that there's a level of rigor and prioritization around the work that we do. So we have a pipeline, we have different stages within a pipeline, and we're very encouraging of ideas to come into the pipeline. That's the first step, is actually collate all the different ideas that are around. And obviously that's always changing. We then assess the different ideas, a very high level assessment, just really to understand, is it a fit for Fexco? Is it somewhere that we can add value? Do we have expertise already? Does it look like it's a big enough problem that's interesting to solve and that there's a potential market there? Assuming that's the case, then we have just different gates along the way where we bring it through governance to say, look, we think this is an idea, but we want to actually spend some time on this. And it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks where we do a deeper dive on something to really, get beyond scratching the surface and say, do we really think there's something here before we start to, this is before we even start to put a line of code against anything. It's really to understand that problem space. So I suppose the lens we use as we're going through all of those different phases, the discovery, the assessment, the discovery, and then going on to prototype is just continually to circle around the 3 different questions that we always ask ourselves are kind of, one, is it technically feasible? And generally it is. That isn't the hardest part of the question to answer. The other things are, is it actually desirable? So do you have a customer in mind for this? Do they have a problem? Is it a big enough problem? Is it a problem they have now, or are they not really going to have this problem for another 3 or 4 years? So therefore, why would we invest in it now? And then assuming we were to solve that problem, is it big enough to actually make money out of? So how much are they going to pay you to solve the problem, or is it just a nice to have? So we circle around those 3 questions at every stage. We learn more as we go through the process, and we're building up that knowledge as we get through it, and we're refining who the customer might be, who's their persona, what are the needs, and then who are the buyers, what sort of budget have they got, and trying to fill in all the pieces of the equation to actually see if you've got a business at the end of the day.
That's really interesting. One of the lines that stood out for me in your presentation was tech is everywhere and you can build most things, but should you?
Yeah. And I think, look, in my career, tech used to be the hard piece. There was a bit of an unknown about technology, and I think with the advent of things like cloud computing, obviously AI now, technology has just accelerated, and the barrier to entry around building something is probably lower than it's ever been, and only going to get lower when you start to apply things like AI on top of it. So really, that's not the question to answer anymore. I think it's more valuable to spend time on really understanding the customer pain point and, whether there's value in solving that problem. Because I think with technology, you'll always find a way.
That leads me to another question. When you're talking about building a product and you envisage that the product will be used in a certain way, have you ever found that once the product is built, that the customers use it in an entirely different way to which it's been purposely built? Have you come across that in your career?
Look, yes, I have. We've built products before that we thought people would use it a certain way. And when you see the usage data, you're like, oh, they're not actually using it in the way that we thought they would use it. And, I guess that's the whole point of product, is it's not a point in time role. You're always questioning, you're always interrogating data, information, customers, and trying to make sense of all of that information to go, is the product the right fit for what people are trying to do? And if people aren't using it in a certain way that you thought they were going to use it, that's interesting, because that's a pivot point to jump to potentially something else. Or maybe it's it's another product that you could build based on what you're seeing. So again, it's a challenge because we're in a world where there's no end of data. Data used to be a hard thing to come by. Now it's like an avalanche. So you have to try and make sense of it all and understand what it means for your product. But that's a continuous part of the role. Whether you're doing new product innovation or you've already launched a product and it's really successful, the world is changing, behaviors are changing. You've got to keep looking at the data and stay close to that.
So build your MVP and test it, just get it out there.
Yeah, for a new product, definitely it's don't boil the ocean. Like, you don't know what you don't know. You need to get something out there. You'll learn by doing it. By putting something in front of something, you'll start to identify other needs and the product will evolve from there. But even for mature products, you can't rest on your laurels. Like, technologies come along, there's people innovating and disrupting all the time. So you need to keep an eye on that for your existing products too.
And tying back into your presentation, you were saying that you can have really good data and a really good product, but one of your strengths is your strong relationships with your customers.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, look, I mean, customers are the people who pay the bills at the end of the day and pay you for your product. So developing a product in isolation of a customer is just madness. The balance you have to strike, I think, when you're in the world of product is not, how much do you do that's customized to one customer versus trying to go, no, there's enough. It's actually a market. It's not one customer. There's multiple customers that are going to pay for this. And then how do you get the requirements right that they're going to satisfy the most people? Because a lot of early stage product development can be done maybe with only one or two customers, and you're using them to shape the product. But at some point, the product needs to grow up and become a product, and you start to think about, actually, there's reusable components here that are more applicable to multiple customers rather than just one. So it's different depending on what stage of the product is in its life cycle.
This is brilliant. There's so many questions I could ask you, and you've got so much experience and so much expertise across so many different industries. But if I had to wrap this up with one question, I'd have to ask you, what's the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
This one for me is easy, because as an engineer, I loved technology. I loved the idea of using technology to do things. Probably early on didn't really think too much about the validity of why you were doing some of those things, because I was more of an engineer and didn't have enough of a commercial lens on things. I think, what I've learned is you can build anything really, but you need to understand what problem are you solving, and you really need to understand that problem is valuable and somebody actually needs the problem to be solved and they're willing to pay for it. So I would spend more time on the problem, and then I think the solution or the product ends up being better as a result of that. I think if you jump to solution mode too quickly, you're just not setting yourself up for success.
Liz, that is fantastic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this interview.
Not at all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you
Anytime.
so much.